Zach Cox, Dakota Randall here inside Hard Rock Stadium after the Patriots lost to the Miami Dolphins 31-17. This was another strange game, a game that kind of has followed a similar script to a lot of Patriots games this season, and you can really point to the hinge point being another ugly, bad Mac Jones interception. It happened before halftime, but I think his interception to Jalen Ramsey really was a turning point in this game.
Yeah, this was a very post-Tom Brady game for the Patriots and a very Mac Jones kind of game for Mac Jones. You know, there were times I thought where he played well and made some good throws. But again, pressure was an issue, so it's hard to evaluate exactly how he did. But at the end of the day, you look at this game and you're like, the complexion of it would have been much different if not for that interception at the end of the first half. You know, at worst, the Patriots get a field goal there. Maybe it's 14-10 at halftime. At best, you know, maybe they take a lead or they tie the game rather. Instead, the Dolphins go down. They get a 17-7 lead. And I think for everybody, it felt like the game was over at that point. Yes, the Patriots made it close. They had a couple opportunities in the second half. But when you're facing a team like the Dolphins, you can't build yourself that kind of hole. And that interception was a huge part of it. So I think at the end of the day, it wasn't good enough for Mac Jones. It wasn't good enough overall for the Patriots. And you look at it and you say they're just not nearly as good as the Dolphins. And Mac Jones isn't nearly good enough to win these kind of games on his own to close that gap.
Yeah, Patriots certainly weren't able to maintain some of that offensive momentum they had last week. I thought Miami did a very good job of handling those, the pre-snap motions and some of the misdirections and some of the elements that were able to give the Buffalo Bills problems last week. The Dolphins were much more prepared and much more ready to counter those. Patriots' offensive issues got compounded late in this game when they lost two of their top wide receivers, Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne, in pretty quick successions. It was on back-to-back drives, head injury for Devontae Parker on a questionable hit that probably should have been flagged, almost certainly will end up in a fine for safety Deshaun Elliott, and then it was a knee injury for Kendrick Bourne on the following drive. Both players ruled out rather quickly, which tends to not be a very good sign, but it's something that's really hurt the Patriots all season. They've been killed by injuries on both sides of the ball. They also lost linebacker Jawan Bentley earlier in this game.
That's as big as anything, losing him, given how important he is to the defense. I mean, that's a huge loss for them.
Absolutely. You see this Patriots defense already without Matthew Judon, already without Christian Gonzalez. Then you lose Jawan Bentley, who is playing close to 95% of the snaps, one of the most important players on this team. It's hard to slow down a Miami Dolphins offense when you're losing so many key parts here.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Patriots injury report was better this week than it was last week when it was around 20 players. It was only like 9 or 10 this time around, but you know, I think a lot of guys are also playing through things. But again, it got even worse today. And the problem is, it's so many key players. It's Matthew Judon, it's Kendrick Bourne, it's Devontae Parker, it's Christian Gonzalez. So you know, it hurts them even more. But I thought, as much as anything, the problem out here today really was key errors in big situations. You know, you had the defensive breakdown on the touchdown to Jalen Waddle. You had J.C. Jackson and Marte Mapu, I think, both playing poorly on that long touchdown to Tyreek Hill. You had Patriots giving up 10 yards on a third and 14, and then 13 yards on another 3rd and 14 that made
big missed tackle on one of those.
Yeah, made manageable fourth downs, and then obviously the interception. So just big mistakes in key spots. You know, that at the end of the day, you can maybe survive one or two of those, but against a team like this, if you make 3, 4, 5 of those, you're dead in the water, and that's what happened to them again today. And then the injuries just made it that much harder for them to come back.
Yep. 3 converted fourth downs as well for Miami in this game. The
Patriots only had 1 third down conversion this game, 1 for 9.
And Miami wasn't even that great on third down conversions a lot in this game. I believe they started off something like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8, but they were able to get those key plays on fourth down, extend some of those drives, obviously end up putting up over 30 points in this game. This Patriots team for years has not been a team that's built to win a game when it allows 30 points. We mentioned the injuries earlier, the injuries to Parker and Bourne. If those had not happened, we probably would not have seen any Juju Smith-Schuster in this game. He was active after missing the last 2 games with a concussion, but did not play a single snap until both Parker and Bourne were out of the game. Ended up seeing his lone target late in the game. He turned that into his first touchdown as a Patriot, but probably made an even more explosive contribution on the Patriots' final offensive play of the game when he nailed Brandon Jones, Dolphins safety, sparked what was close to a full team brawl. Both teams coming off the sidelines, really scuffling at midfield. It dissipated before there were any punches or was anything serious going on there, but it looked like it could go down a pretty dangerous path there for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I was watching that play saying, please don't let this turn into something ridiculous, because then it just turns into an insane amount of work afterward. But thankfully for our workload, that didn't happen, and for the Patriots and Dolphins, it didn't get too ugly. But you're right. I mean, I think the Patriots are clearly frustrated, not just with the season, but, I mean, this team owns them, right? I mean, Tua Tagovailoa is 6-0 against Bill Belichick. When Skylar Thompson isn't out there, the Patriots can't beat the Dolphins. And so I imagine they're frustrated, and I think for the Dolphins' perspective, I understand why they took exception to the hit by Juju. I do think it was clean. It was just one of those things. But, some players were hot. Christian Barmore was really heated, probably more so than anybody. But like you said, it didn't get too nasty out there, but it looked like it was trending that way for a minute.
Patriots 0-6, as you mentioned, against Tua Tagovailoa in his career. They have not won here in Miami since 2019, and they are now 2-9 in their last 11. I'm doing some math now. 2-9 in their last 11 games down here in South Florida, and they're 2-6 on the season. And we talked about it before the game. Win this game, you're right back into the AFC playoff race, even though you still have a lot of ground to make up. Now you're 2-6. You're going into the trade deadline on Tuesday. This really is starting to feel like a lost season for the Patriots. It would take a pretty remarkable run for them to turn it around at this point. It's only one loss, but this really feels like a significant turning point in the Patriots season to me.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder if Bill Belichick looks at it and goes, okay, we have the Commanders, we have the Colts, we have the Giants coming up. We win those three, we're 5-6. We take our chances. I think they're 2-2 in the division, so they're in good shape for that tiebreaker. But I think you have to look at it and say history is not on your side for a team that starts 1-5. If they're going to do right by the franchise, I think they have to not just trade obvious pieces like Josh Uche, who I feel like makes a lot of sense, but maybe you have to make some bold decisions on some players who maybe you don't want to give up, but you need to sort of get the draft picks you need, amass draft capital, whether it be to make trades, move up in the draft, whatever you want to do, the typical rebuild thing. I think they have to really start thinking about that now. And if Bill Belichick doesn't want to do it because he's focused on winning, you wonder if Robert Kraft comes in and pulls rank a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with just a couple days before the deadline. I think they have to make moves, but I do wonder if they'll just make a couple obvious ones and not really make the bold decisions that I think are necessary for them to make.
Yeah, Washington Commanders coming to Foxborough next Sunday, but first there is the NFL trade deadline on Tuesday. Names to watch, you mentioned some of them: Josh Uche, Kyle Duggar, Mike Owenu. We'll see on Kendrick Bourne. We don't know the severity of his knee injury at this point, but he was an obvious possible trade candidate coming into today. There's a chance the Patriots roster could look substantially different in about 48 hours, and again, they now sit at 2-6 on the season after a 31-17 loss to the Miami Dolphins.